They called him the Immortal, a golden giant who once stood at the top of the world, shirt ripped, arms raised, America roaring his name. But today, the arena is silent. Hulk Hogan's real name, Terry Eugene Bollea, has died at the age of 71. The man who once slammed giants to the mat, who carried the weight of an entire era on his tanned shoulders, is now just a memory. But what really happened to Hulk Hogan? Was it just age, or did the years of painkillers, surgeries, and a broken family life finally take their toll? In this emotional tribute, we go beyond the headlines. From the moment he became a wrestling god, to the lonely days of lawsuits, leaked tapes, and a body stitched together by surgeries. We bring you the real story. Before the crowds, before the lights, before the yellow bandana became a global symbol, he was just Terry. Born on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia, Terry Bollea wasn't born into fame. His father was a construction worker, his mother, a homemaker, and young Terry was just a big, shy kid who fell in love with baseball, music, and later, lifting iron. But life had other plans. In the gritty gyms of Tampa, Florida, something was awakening. Not just muscle but presence. He wasn't the fastest, not the strongest. But when he walked into a room, you felt it? That something would catch the eye of a local wrestler named Jack Briscoe. He saw in Terry what the world hadn't yet, a modern-day gladiator with movie star looks. And the size of a comic book hero. Terry trained under the legendary Hiro Matsuda, a brutal mentor who broke his leg on the first day just to test him. Most would quit. Terry came back. He entered the ring in the late 70s, but it wasn't until Vince McMahon Sr. rebranded him as Hulk Hogan that history changed. The name came from Lou Ferrigno, original Hulk actor, because Terry looked just as massive. Had a bleach blonde mustache, yellow tights, and a charisma that cracked through TV screens. Hulk Hogan became larger than life, and then came WrestleMania 3, over 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome. Hulk Hogan vs. Andre the Giant. The crowd wasn't watching a match. They were witnessing a myth being written. When Hogan lifted Andre's 750 pounds of living legend and slammed him to the mat, the world stood still. That moment made Hulk Hogan immortal. Hulkamania wasn't just a gimmick, it was a movement. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, believe in yourself. These weren't just words, they were gospel to an entire generation. Boys didn't want to grow up to be astronauts anymore. They wanted to be Hulk Hogan. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was a superhero come to life. And for a time, he was untouchable. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was a global phenomenon. A living, breathing icon of strength, charisma, and unshakable values. From kids wearing yellow Hulkamania shirts, to adults shouting "Whatcha gonna do, brother?" in bars, his influence saturated every corner of pop culture. He had taken WrestleMania, the WWE's flagship event, and turned it into a cultural holiday. His match against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 in 1987 became one of the most watched wrestling events of all time. The image of Hogan body slamming the 520-pound Andre remains one of the most replayed and iconic moments in sports entertainment history. That night, Hulk Hogan didn't just defeat an opponent, he cemented his status as a living legend. As the face of the WWE, then WWF, he headlined show after show, pay-per-view after pay-per-view. His catchphrases from "Train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins," to "Hulkamania is runnin' wild," were repeated by millions. Children idolized him. Parents respected him. He was the all-American superhero at a time when America was looking for one. But it wasn't just wrestling. Hogan's popularity crossed over into mainstream media. He appeared on magazine covers, talk shows, and starred in films like No Holds Barred and Suburban Commando. While critics didn't always praise his acting, it didn't matter. People came to watch Hulk Hogan, not the film. Merchandise flew off the shelves. Action figures, lunchboxes, posters, headbands. Hogan's face was everywhere. By 1990, he was arguably more recognizable worldwide than most Hollywood actors. But with fame came challenges. The media began circling, eager to uncover anything behind the golden smile and 24-inch pythons. Still, Hogan powered forward, unshaken. He knew the spotlight could burn, but he embraced it anyway. This was Hulk Hogan's golden era time when he wasn't just part of the culture. He was the culture. As the spotlight dimmed and the world moved on to newer names and fresher scandals, Hulk Hogan found himself at a crossroads, a moment that would define whether he faded away like a relic or rose again as a redeemed icon. After the Gawker trial and the WWE fallout, Hogan disappeared from the public eye for a time. The headlines stopped, the memes died down, and for a man whose entire life was built on being larger than life, the silence was deafening. But in that quiet, something changed. Hogan began to reflect not just on his career, but on the man behind the bandana. He started making appearances at children's hospitals again, visiting sick fans, sometimes unannounced, wearing his signature red and yellow. He spoke openly about mental health, regret, and forgiveness. In podcasts and interviews, there was no longer the bravado of "Whatcha gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you," but rather, a softer tone. A man trying to come to peace with both his past and the world he helped shape. Behind the scenes, many fans and former colleagues shared stories of how generous and kind Hogan truly was. Stories that never made headlines. A wrestler who paid for the funeral of a fan's father. A man who sent personal video messages to fans going through cancer treatment. The kind of heroism that doesn't trend but stays etched in the hearts of those it touched. In 2023, WWE slowly began mentioning his name again, first in whispers, then in highlight reels. By 2024, he was invited to a WrestleMania event as a fighter, but as a guest of honor. The crowd erupted. Not everyone cheered, of course. Some still remembered the controversies. But many, perhaps most, saw a man who had fallen, but never stopped trying to rise again. And then, in July 2025, the world woke up to the news. Hulk Hogan had passed away in his home in Clearwater, Florida, surrounded by family. The cause, complications from a long-hidden heart condition that had worsened in recent months, quietly kept away from the media to avoid sensationalism. But what truly shook the internet wasn't just the loss, it was the outpouring of love, gratitude, and grief. Fans flooded forums, TikTok, and Instagram with old photos, fan art, and tearful tribute videos. Celebrities, wrestlers, athletes, and even people who had once criticized him posted heartfelt messages. Hashtag RIP Hogan trended globally for 2 days straight. And perhaps the most touching moment was when a young boy, fighting cancer, held up a handmade sign at a local wrestling event. That simply said, "He made me believe in heroes." Because despite the scandals, the lawsuits, and the deeply human mistakes, Hulk Hogan's legacy isn't just about wrestling, it's about resilience. It's about being a flawed man who still tried to do right by his fans. It's about becoming a symbol of strength, of nostalgia, of a time when heroes wore bright colors and spoke in thunderous voices. And maybe, it's about reminding us all that even the strongest can fall, but they can also rise again. But no legend rises forever without shadows forming behind them. For Hulk Hogan, the man who once stood as a larger-than-life hero to millions, the fall came not with a single blow but a slow, painful unraveling. And when it came, it wasn't inside the wrestling ring, it was in the public eye. As the 1990s rolled on, the world of wrestling began to change. Audiences craved edgier, more realistic characters. Hogan's "say your prayers, eat your vitamins" persona began to feel dated in an era obsessed with anti-heroes and grittier storytelling. Younger stars were rising: Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and others who represented a new rebellious wave. But Hogan wasn't ready to fade into the background. In a bold move that shocked the world, he turned heel in 1996, becoming the villain in the now iconic NWO New World Order storyline in WCW. The man who once preached morality was now dressed in black, playing the bad guy. For some fans, it felt like betrayal. For others, it was genius. But one thing was clear: Hulkamania was no longer the golden standard. The wrestling world was evolving without him at the center. Still, Hogan managed to stay relevant, adapting and fighting for his spot, even as the industry changed. But while he wrestled to maintain control in the ring, a far greater storm brewed outside of it, one that would nearly destroy everything he had built. In the 2000s, Hogan's personal life began to crack under public scrutiny. A very public divorce from his wife, Linda, revealed the crumbling foundation beneath the celebrity image. Lawsuits, financial struggles, and bitter family disputes became tabloid headlines. Then came the moment that would permanently stain his legacy. In 2015, a private video was leaked capturing Hogan using deeply offensive, racist language during a recorded conversation. It wasn't just a scandal, it was an earthquake. Within hours, the WWE terminated all ties with him. His name was scrubbed from their website. His Hall of Fame status vanished. Sponsors dropped him. Friends disappeared. Fans, once loyal to the bone, expressed disbelief and anger. The superhero had fallen not from a suplex, but from the weight of his own words. Hogan issued a public apology, acknowledging the pain he caused and asking for forgiveness. But the damage was done. In a world increasingly aware of race, power, and accountability, there was no escaping the consequences. The fall wasn't theatrical. It wasn't scripted. It was real, and it was devastating. For a man who once represented everything good, strong, and virtuous, it was a tragic irony to find himself ostracized and shamed by the very values he used to preach. He disappeared from the spotlight. And for a while, it seemed like that was the end. No more red and yellow, no more chants, no more Hulkamania. Just silence. A silence heavy with regret, mistakes, and a haunting question: could the icon ever rise again? The final curtain didn't fall in a wrestling ring. There was no bell, no referee, no audience chanting his name in unison. But somehow, it felt like the whole world paused in a quiet room in Florida on a warm summer evening in July 2025. Terry Bollea, the man the world knew as Hulk Hogan, took his last breath, and with that, an era ended. News of his passing spread like wildfire. Social media flooded with clips, tributes, and raw tears from fans across generations. From old VHS tapes of WrestleMania 3 to modern-day tributes by kids who never saw him wrestle live but knew his legend through stories told by their parents. The love was overwhelming. And then we did something unexpected. At SummerSlam 2025, the arena lights dimmed. A single spotlight hit the center of the ring. On the Titantron, a montage began to play his first entrance, the iconic leg drop. The intense promos, the crowd eruptions, and finally, that smile. No words, just emotion. And at the very end of the tribute, a phrase appeared on screen: "Heroes are remembered, but legends never die." In that moment, the crowd stood in excitement, but in respect. Some cheered, many cried. Because they weren't just mourning a wrestler. They were saying goodbye to a part of their childhood, a part of their hope, a part of what made them believe in something larger than life. And maybe that's what Hulk Hogan truly gave the world: not just titles, not just entertainment, not just action figures and t-shirts. He gave us the dream of being stronger than the odds, of standing tall even when life knocked us down, of ripping the shirt off, doubt, and flexing through fear. So today, wherever you are, if you ever whispered what you're gonna do, brother, if you ever raised your hand in the air, mimicking a Hulkamania pose, know this: you are part of something eternal. Rest in power, Hulk Hogan. You may have left the ring, but your echo will live forever.